The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.
Hello, and welcome to the final episode of Oh, Mr. Sheffield Season 5. I am Shawn DiPasquale here with...
Toria Sheffield.
That's right. And if you're just tuning in, I don't know why you'd be listening to the very last episode of the season, but this is a show where we discuss The Nanny, a hit show from the 90s starring Fran Drescher. We are discussing the final episode of Season 5, The Wedding, Part 2. Although, as we established last week, I don't think these were actually aired as a Part 1 and Part 2, but that is how HBO Max has them, and so we are beholden to our corporate overlords. Yes?
No, I was just going to say that I can't believe we're at the end of Season 5, and I looked, we've been recording for 2.5 years, so
really?
We watch in double time.
Wow. Is that true?
Well, almost not. It's April. The first one came out April 2021.
Man, that's wild. And so because we're putting them out weekly. So I guess we're burning through them quicker than the show, which took hiatuses and summers off and all that. We should have, we're dumb. All right. Well, whatever. Anyway, listen, here we are. The last episode of the season. It's very exciting. I'm excited to get into the final season because it feels like, well, they can't play the old chestnut anymore, so they're no longer allowed to play the hits. So I'm very curious to see how they fill those 22 episodes. And judging by the way this episode ends, it's going to be with non-sensory.
Well, I also want to say that I was looking through all the episodes of this season as just memory lane, right? Before watching this episode.
A little clip show of the mind, if you will.
Isn't that just what memories are, I guess?
Yeah.
But I was just this season had so much. And some of this felt so long ago. I can't believe it was this season. We had the Roseanne episode. We had Elton John. We had a Ransom parody episode, Chevy Chase in Atlantic City. We had Bryant Gumbel. We had
Whoopi Goldberg.
We had Whoopi Goldberg. We had a Full Body Rash episode. Like some of the stuff from the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, if you had told me this was season 4 or even season 3, I would have believed you. But it was a really fun season overall.
I'm really interested in some of the the penultimate episode of the final season is called Maggie's Wedding. And I think it is fascinating that the time that happens between now and then is enough time for that girl to get married. Doesn't it seem like not enough time? I don't know.
Also a sophomore in college, I would.
Yeah. It's unless there's a huge time jump, it makes no sense to me.
I don't think it's a time jump. I think she might be in college getting married.
Oh, okay.
We'll see. We don't know. I'm sure some people who have seen this recently are screaming at us. But so, okay.
Well, whatever. So, don't scream. Calm down. How about that?
And then leave us alone. So
look, we're limping to a finale. Just God, cut us a break.
Since it sounds like this episode was really part of the last episode, same writer and same director. So Peter Mark Jacobson also directing, and then remind me who was the writer again?
Karen Lucas.
Karen Lucas, right? Okay.
Yeah,
and I'll start out by saying, and Shawn and I were talking about this earlier, we were both very confused initially by the opening of this episode because I figured it out after kind of piecing it together and watching it twice. But the opening of this episode takes place before all of the events of the last episode, like the wedding part 1. Because in that part 1, they keep saying 19 hours to the wedding, 16 hours to the wedding. And we start off here. Fran's in the same outfit as she was then, but she's saying 24 hours until the wedding. So we start off with her when she was leaving the house to go hang out with Val and her mom.
Did they really do this way? Or do you think this is the edit for chopping it up into 2? They seriously had I don't know. All right.
Oh, I mean, I guess.
Like, I just can't believe this is really how it plays out. They like do that whole episode, and then this episode starts back at the beginning of before the last episode started, but then in the middle of this episode with like no real like fanfare, they like suddenly are caught back up in time. Like, I don't know. That seems like a lot for this show.
Such a good point. I bet you're totally right. I bet you this scene initially was at the beginning of what we saw in the last episode. That would make so much more sense.
If this was like a whole hour, then like wouldn't it make more sense for like this scene and like wouldn't it make more sense if this was an hour to just have it be chronological?
Yes. Okay. So you're right. So maybe that's why it was so confusing. But so basically what we really established in this scene, which is going to make sense later, is that Fran and Maxwell are horny AF for each other, and they are counting down the minutes until their wedding night. Yeah. And they're like, literally, Fran's like, her countdown's not until the wedding; it's till they're doing it after. And we also find out that their honeymoon is going to be a 2-month cruise. I mean, I instantly got judgy. I was like, dude, you have children. That's no.
My note was 2-month cruise. Being poor sucks. It was my first thought. I was like, oh. Well,
I was like, unless you're flying the kids out for like 3/4 of that, that's just irresponsible.
I mean, the kids are going to go stay with Maggie's husband.
But it is summer vacation, so maybe that is part of it. But so we then cut to Fran and Val in bed in their pajamas. It's like, the wedding night. The night before the wedding. They've come back from their Jersey adventure. I also love their pajamas. Val's in these coffee donut pajamas, which were so cute. I would love those. And they're just like lying on their back, staring at the ceiling, chewing gum like they're teenagers. And Val's kind of like, Fran, like, this is the last time it's ever going to be like this. Just you and me lying in bed like this. And then Fran goes, God willing. And then Sylvia comes in and she's like, all right, it's time for the mother-daughter prenuptial talk. And she sort of sends Val out of the room. And then this was an incredibly sweet moment where Fran's like, Mom, when did you have time to do this? And she's like, the day you were born. Because Sylvia pulls out a letter. She's like, I wrote you a letter. And she's like, I wrote it the day you were born. And it's basically like, this is the best day of my life. And I know the next best day is going to be your wedding day. And then she's like, when you're 21 years old. And then she looks at, there's like a beat and she goes, Kennedy was in office. We were all optimistic. But then, she sort of, says all these nice things to Fran and they embrace. And then Sylvia goes to turn off the light. She turns around and she's like, good night. She's like, good night, sweetie. And then we see how Sylvia sees Fran in bed and she's just a little girl again under the covers.
Sweet. I love it so much.
I know. And she's like, good night, Ma. And you just sort of see Sylvia smile. And it's, oh my gosh, I loved it.
I loved it. I loved it. I also loved her. The beat right after this is Fran like rolls over to go to sleep and she turns on the TV and she's watching, you hear I Love Lucy playing in the background. And then it cuts to Maxwell and he's also like laying in bed, like trying to fall asleep, also watching I Love Lucy. Which I thought was so cute.
I am about to hit you with a huge...
No, don't hit me.
I'm about to hit you square across the face.
No, stop.
No, but I am going to hit you backhanded square across the face multiple times with some information that is going to blow your mind. Okay,
you're so violent. I'm gonna shoot you with an information gun that's gonna blow your brains all over the wall.
Pistol whip you with some news. So this is gonna thrill you. Okay, so in the original airing of this episode, and actually I might even put this in trivia, but I just have to say it right now. So apologies if I did. In the original airing, Fran goes to sleep, like watching I Love Lucy, and then we cut to a scene where Fran is superimposed in an episode of I Love Lucy. Aww. And they really did use an actual episode, and it aired once on CBS for this airing, and then they never showed it again. So I think they might have only had the rights for this one time.
That's garbage. That's caca.
So, but you can go on YouTube. You just do Fran I Love Lucy scene, and you can see it, and it is cool. So cute. It's basically so it's like Fran turns on the TV. We hear the I Love Lucy theme song. She goes to sleep, and then we see her in black and white in Lucy and Ricky's apartment. And, basically Fran's like, oh my gosh, Lucy, like, I can't believe it. Like, I'm finally getting married. And Lucy, whatever scene they had taken it from, she's like, oh, it's so exciting. And then Fran is like, oh, I feel like we have so much in common. I'm marrying a man from a different country. You're with an accent. Like, you married a man from a different country with an accent. Like, mine works in showbiz, your works in showbiz. And then she's like, you guys sleep in twin beds. And she's like, and that's where the similarities end. And then they just kind of like do this, the way Lucy used to like giddy dance, and Fran does it with her. And then and that's when they cut after that to Mr. Sheffield.
So this is 1998. It's so funny how you can place exactly why this scene exists. And it's like, this is post Forrest Gump, right? Everyone figured out, oh, we can insert people into old footage and make it look real, because they did it so well in Forrest Gump, and now this technology is a little more readily available. And so you get stuff like this. And it's super cool. I'm very excited. I'm going to watch this scene. I might watch it while you're talking.
Oh, great.
I'm just kidding. Okay. So, 2-month honeymoon, bananas. How dare they?
I like how after all that,
I'm still mad about it. I'm still mad about it.
We moved on like 10 minutes.
And then we move on to my note here was, oh, here comes the cartoonishly evil character.
Well, no, not yet. Because so when we cut back to Maxwell watching, also I Love Lucy, he turns the TV off just as Niall comes in and like offers him a nightcap and kind of like a toast to the night before his wedding. And there was this line made me laugh out loud. I was like, wow, the nanny is taking shots, because so Mr. Sheffield, he's kind of confesses to Niles that he's really nervous about his wedding night, specifically because he's like, I'm worried I'm not going to be able to please Fran on the big night. I've had relatively little experience and she's had so much. And then he's like, she's been with an Italian. And then Niles goes, oh, sir, that was 5 years ago. Believe me, she's so ready. Even an Englishman will please her. And then they toast to that.
Yeah.
I just like, it's so funny. The idea of these two Englishmen, like, they're like, yeah, this is just this, it is what it is. Like, we're bad in bed. And then I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, it was very funny.
Well,
I think it's, I'm kind of bummed out. I think it sucks that like so much gets, so I dug a little bit deeper into it, and this definitely was aired as a full hour, and then it was chopped up for syndication. So it's not HBO Max didn't do this, but syndication did do this. They like chopped it up, added a new like what do you call it, credits onto it and stuff. I can't figure out if they like reordered things or not. That is not clear, but judging by the fact that they like cut whole scenes out and stuff, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah that makes total sense. Just based on how confusing that first scene was, it would make that's probably, I would bet money. Well, then we cut to the actual morning of the wedding. Fran is getting ready with her bridal party. So it's like, it's Maggie, Gracie, Val, and she is just amped up with nerves to the point where like Val says she forgot to bring something blue, and Fran literally starts to strangle her. And she's like, I can't get married without something blue. And Gracie's like, you're choking her. And she's like, well, at least then I'll have something blue. And then
everyone looks great here, by the way. Like even Val looks like stunning.
Yes. Like actually, I was going to say like the wedding makeup was gorgeous, and Fran's wearing a different look than she often wears. It's like softer. It's more like sort of pinks and like peaches, like not the red. And it was so nice. And there's a knock on the door, and Fran instantly goes, class it up. It might be someone from his side. And so everybody like instantly stops fighting. And it turns out it's Maxwell's sister, Jocelyn, who we have established is a biznatch now.
Sweeping into the room like a Disney villain.
Yes. And so the others clear out. And again, I just wrote, she's so much meaner than we first saw her. That's so sad. And she very passively aggressively starts alluding to the fact that their mother hates Fran. And, which Fran did not know. And Fran didn't even know that the mother wasn't coming, because Maxwell had like decided to, kindly keep that from her. And Fran's like, what? She doesn't like me? And then Jocelyn's like, oh, well, like she also hated Lester. And now she loves him, but that's probably just because we're getting a divorce. And Fran's like, what? Like you guys are getting divorced? And Jocelyn's like, yes. Like, turns out Mummy was right. Classes can't mix. And she sort of reveals that it turned out she and Lester actually had nothing in common, and she became incredibly bored with him. And then she's like, oh, but it'll be completely different with you and Maxwell. Lester's family was completely classless. Cue Sylvia running in going, oi, where's the can? I took a diuretic instead of a Tylenol. And then she runs into the other room.
Stupid.
But so this was like a very mean thing to say to Fran.
It's so mean. It's like, I don't know. I felt it was like cartoonishly evil. It's like, why would she say this to her? Like, why do this to someone on their wedding day? It's so manipulative. And yeah.
I mean, I guess because she's bitter about her own life.
Yeah. She's sad.
We then
she's
cut
sad
to
lady.
Sad lady.
I want to hug her.
She had pretty hair though.
Sad lady, pretty hair.
We cut to the wedding. And wow, I'm really shocked and grateful that people stick with this podcast sometimes for these keen observations.
Sad lady, pretty hair.
We cut to the wedding.
Deep dive with Shawn and Toria.
The wedding is in the friggin' Metropolitan Museum of Art.
It's ridiculous.
It is. They cut to the exterior of it. I had to double check that is indeed what that building was. I mean, incredible. And so everybody, the bride and groomsmen are processing in to music, and it's just like this very, very ornate decor. And I was literally just thinking at this moment how bummed I was that Cece is not there for all this, and like how funny it would be if we only got to see her reaction at the wedding. Truly, no sooner did I think that, did Cece, aka Lauren Lane, show up. And she's dressed in all white, which is obviously a faux pas for a wedding. And I think she may have had the baby at this point, but is like still on maternity leave, like in real life.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But she shows up and she sidles up right next to Maxwell, like in the time between when he's supposed to process in and where, and the actual everything begins. And she's like, I'm here for my wedding day. And he looks like horrified. And she's like, I'm just kidding. She's like, I'm very happy for you and Fran. But then as he starts to process in the aisle, she like grabs a bow and puts it on her hair, like a white bow, so it looks like a veil. And she almost tries to like elbow her way into getting marrying him. Like, it's so irrational. And then Niall sees it and he like marches over and like grabs her by the elbow and almost like drags her into a seat. She's like almost goes kicking and screaming, but she does submit. And then, so now Mr. Sheffield is standing by the altar and everybody turns their heads because the music changes. And this is the moment when Fran is supposed to appear and, the big reveal of the bride, but she doesn't appear. She doesn't arrive. And there's this really long, awkward beat. And Sylvia kind of like jumps up and sort of says something like, I'll be right back. Like, everything's fine, And then we hear her scream, I'm gonna kill her off screen. She bursts into the room and she's like, how could you leave me up there at the altar? as if she's the groom. And she finds Fran. Oh, and she's about to yell at Fran more, but then she's like, when this damn diuretic wears off, you're going to get it. And then she runs off screen again. And then Maxwell shows up and he's just like, darling, like, did you check your day planner? We're supposed to get married right now. and she's like sobbing and she's just like, the wedding is off. It's clearly not going to happen. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, I talked to your sister Jocelyn and, you're so sophisticated and, I'm just the poor schlub who works for you. It's never going to work. And then he goes, oh, darling, I mean, you never really work. And she's like, this is not a time for jokes. Like, you're going to get bored with me. And like, you're never going to get over the fact that your mother hates me. And she's literally like doing that thing. It's very Lucille Ball where it's like, yep. Never gonna get. It's very funny. And he like sits next to her and he takes her hands in his and he's like, I won't get bored with you. And he's like, do you maybe want to hear all the reasons I love you? Or do you all the reasons I know I'm going to love you forever? And she's like, it might help.
Yeah. He goes, I know that I'm going to love you forever. What do I have to do to prove it to you? And she goes, a few examples would be nice, which I thought was really cute.
Yes.
A few examples. And then he gives her examples. It's very adorable.
Yes, it's very adorable. He's like, I love your humor. I love that you make me laugh. I love how passionate you are. And he's like, I love your zest for life. And then he's like, and I love the way you love, like with all your heart and soul. And he's like, you blew into our lives 5 years ago like a whirlwind, and you made us feel alive again. And for that alone, I'll love you forever. And it was just like, oh. And then she goes, you don't think I'm pretty? Very fun. And even she knows it's kind of a funny comment.
Yeah, they both laugh. It's cute.
Yeah, it was a beautiful moment. I loved it. It was so, and it was the kind of thing where I have to admit, like skipping ahead a little, I was a little disappointed by the very last scene because everything else in this episode was so gorgeous and perfect.
Same. We'll talk about it when we get there. So, I have a lot of complaints.
No, but again, so many amazing things. And then we cut to the moment where Fran actually does walk down the aisle. And this is the first time we get to see her in her wedding gown, because she was in sort of the the sort of the bridal robe or whatever before.
Look, I might be biased, but I got to say, I think my wedding was better.
Well, they're so different. I mean, they're just completely different, because I wrote, first of all, she has the largest bouquet I've ever seen a human hold.
She does.
It was a huge bouquet. I couldn't believe it. But it was gorgeous, but it was just huge. And then she doesn't have a wedding dress. She has a wedding gown. And it is a princess gown. Like it is. And I have to say, I always say this about Fran. She often wears things where it's like, if anybody else wore the outfit would wear them. They wouldn't wear the outfit. This is a dress that like only Fran could pull off, because it would definitely overshadow most people wearing it. But she just looks like a beautiful princess. Like I at first I thought it was too much, but then I rewatched it and I was like, oh no, like for this character, it is fairy tale, right? But it's definitely not like an understated dress by any means, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like a no, it's like princess dress is, I guess, the best way like to describe it. Yeah, it seems like something like a Disney character would wear at the end of a movie, like a magical transformation dress.
Yes, yeah. But again, on her, I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I agree. I think there are some people that would look ridiculous on it. You'd be like, stop, stop it. So what are you doing? But yeah, she looked great. I mean, she's got, I don't know, man. She's great.
I mean, here's the thing. In real life, yes, I would much prefer your wedding to her wedding. like if I saw both weddings, I'd be like, well, obviously Shawn and Liz is the one you want. But this, I think because this is like sitcom land, I didn't judge it the way I would if I was in real life.
Well, I did.
Hey, I mean, you just had a wedding, so I feel like you of all people are well positioned to be very astute about what you like and what you don't like.
It made me feel better about like, oh, see, you don't need to spend all this money to have a great wedding. Like this doesn't seem that great. And
Shawn's wedding was gorgeous. And so, but there, yes, again, the idea of seeing Liz holding a bouquet the size that Fran was holding, it's in real life, it's truly comical.
Imagine we had given Elizabeth a bouquet that she couldn't see over.
It's like one of those gags where someone's wearing like a giant hat kind of thing. But again, when Fran is holding it, it did not occur to me that it was so big until I rewatched it, because she is, Fran Drescher, Fran Fine, can pull off these crazy ass things. But in real life, it would have been like truly mind boggling. But anyway, she looked like a vision. I'm never going to insult our Lord and Savior, Fran Fine. The character Fran Fine, I love her.
Same.
The other thing then, when the wedding starts, which was really cool. So they're married. It's like it's a interdenominational, it's cross-denominational, is that what it's called, wedding, where there is like a minister, a Christian minister and a Jewish rabbi, and they really spend time on the Jewish prayer. The rabbi—
I loved it. I love that the cantor sings. I love that they show Hava Nagila. I loved how Jewish it all was. It made me very happy.
Well, and they don't play it as a joke. They really are just like, oh no, this is like a significant, important moment, and they're sort of letting America in on what this looks like, and really letting it sit a minute, and sort of like with that Passover episode, where they really spent some time, some like TLC.
I loved it.
Just sitting in the moment of like Jewish tradition.
Yep.
And
makes me so happy.
Yeah, letting the world in on it a little bit. And then the rabbi asks if anyone objects. He's like, speak now or forever hold your peace. And Sylvia literally turns and gives a menacing stare to the whole crowd. It's like intimidating people not to say anything. And then Maxwell breaks the glass and they kiss, and it sort of fades into them kissing while they are being held up on chairs during the hora, which is,
that's the best part.
Yeah, you're on the chairs and everyone's dancing around you, and
it's truly great. It's so fun.
And this is where I was like, whoever directed this episode, this was before I knew it was Peter Mark Jacobson, I was like, I love it, because the way that this scene at the actual wedding reception is directed, it's very fluid. It's almost like you as the audience member are getting to sort of like move between all the different people, and you get a glimpse of what these people are talking about and a glimpse of what's happening over here, and people are kind of moving in and out of the shot. And so you really feel like this is a very sort of like vibrant, moving, living party. It allows you to feel like time is passing, even though it's only like a 90-second scene or something. And I have to also say that what was I going to say? Oh, I was going to just say one thing about Shawn's wedding that I loved. I already told him this, is that at one point his mom, who I'd never met before, came up to me and she was like, "You must be Toria." And she's like, "I knew it because you knew how to dance the hora." Which is like, you kind of like all link arms and you dance around in a circle around the bride and groom who are being held up on chairs. And then you can even do it when they're not held up on chairs. But it's just a dance of celebration. And if you don't really know how to move your feet, it can be a little confusing at first, to get into the flow.
That's so funny.
And then, while we're in this scene and we're kind of like getting snidbits of what's happening all over this party, there was these two old Jewish women on Fran's side where it's like, is it me or is the chicken dry? And then she's like, another woman's like, well, I'd rather have that over the fishy salmon. And then Fran comes over and goes, how is everything? And they go, fabulous. And then we see Yetta and Cece are dancing with each other. And they're dancing. And this is my favorite line of the whole episode.
Same.
Yetta sort of like leans in and whispers, I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm a little turned on. I'm like, oh, Yetta, you like
yikes,
sexual creature, you.
Yeah.
You got a wild life, and you've probably been with ladies.
Yeah. I wouldn't doubt it.
No, she's just
Yetta seems fun.
Woman. Yeah, and it was just such a funny moment.
She's very sex positive.
And then we cut over, and the priest and the rabbi, they're going back and forth, and they're yelling, and it's like, he's a god, he's a man, he's a god, he's a man. And Brighton kind of comes over, and he's like, okay, guys, this is hardly the place for a religious debate. And then one of them goes, religious? We're talking about Sinatra, which I thought was adorable.
Adorable.
These two men of faith are debating about Frank Sinatra.
And then the Stanley scene, right? Uncle Stanley is like, he's like, everyone's making fun of me. And Sylvia's like,
they're from a different culture.
They're from a different culture. Like, it's fine. And he's like, no, everyone from our family, I'm leaving. And she goes, Stanley, sit down. We paid for your damn vegetarian dinner. Now eat it.
Yes. Yes.
Which I related to that so much. Every morsel of uneaten food I saw was like a knife in the heart.
Oh, well, you'll be happy
morsel.
to know I shoved cake in my mouth before I left.
Thank you.
Honestly, if it was like more cool to do, I would have taken some cake with me.
Bro, we would have given you some cake. You should have said you wanted some. I would have given you so much friggin' cake.
They should do that at weddings. They should have these little...
box it up. I know. I said that and no one listens to me. It's fine. I don't want to
I would have voted you on the island for that.
Listen, our wedding planner, I'm not going to say who she is.
Mm-hmm.
She's not the best. It wasn't the best experience.
Was she like, that's not how it's done?
It wasn't the best experience. So much so that she kept like hawking after us after the wedding for like, oh, hey, don't forget to leave a review. And we were like, I don't want to leave a bad review, but it's not going to be a good review. So we just, we ghosted our wedding planner. We did.
Oh my God. Well, you know what? Still nicer than leaving a bad review.
That's how I feel. It's like, listen, don't push it. Cause like it's really like, I don't want to like, I don't want to leave a bad review. I just don't want to say anything about it. Like, it's fine.
You know what? I know that some people, I would not do this because I'm avoidant, but some people would be like, well, you should just send her a note explaining why you didn't want to review her positively, and then she could learn. And I'd be like, that's BS. I'm not going
what am I, her teacher? Forget about it.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
And after that fun, lively Sinatra debate, we go over to where Cece is sitting alone, and Niles gives her a drink, and she goes, "Oh, I'm really not supposed to," because she's obviously like still kind of in and out of this sanitarium. But then she downs it, and he goes, "How many times have you done that tonight?" And she goes, "About 8." And then she's like, now that Maxwell's taken, my life is over. And he's like, "Oh, that's not true. You have a lot to offer a man. You're witty, you're sophisticated, you're beautiful." And she goes, "How many drinks have you had tonight?" And he goes, "About 12. Dance with me." And he like takes her off her feet. He like kind of pulls her up and starts dancing with her. And it was just a cute moment between those two.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like at this point we've been like anxiously waiting their romance so much that like now I'm over it, and I'm like, I guess they're gonna get together next season eventually.
Did you read that? We had one of our listeners, I think on social media, post that like she thinks it's so funny that every time there's a moment between them, you keep wondering if this is the moment.
No, I didn't read that.
You've been fatigued. You're CC Niles fatigued.
Now I'm fatigued. Yeah, I'm like, I don't care now. Whatever.
Get together or don't.
Get together or shit or get off the pot, you idiots.
No, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for it. And then we cut to this cute moment between Fran and Maxwell. They're dancing, and he's like, "What do you say we just get out of here?" And she's like, "Oh, but they haven't thrown the bouquet." And he's like, "Darling, you do that. You're the bride." And she's just so used to going to weddings where she's like thinking about, am I going to catch the bouquet, that she like forgot at this one.
I know, it's so funny.
It was so cute. And then everything was such a perfect delight in this episode, right up until about this next scene, where we cut to them. It's Fran and Maxwell. They're on the beautiful yacht. They're on the Universal City lot.
They're on the back lot at the Universal. Yeah.
They probably go or wherever that the CBS lot, but they're on a beautiful yacht. Yeah. And they're in the moonlight. And they're both he's in this like, kind of classy like pajama bathrobe, and she's in this beautiful white nightgown, and and they're just sort of slow dancing and kissing, and everything.
So far, so good.
Yep. And they're just like leading up to the moment where they're finally going to consummate this relationship.
Yes, sure.
And he's like, "Oh, darling, you look so beautiful in the moonlight."
She does.
I'm going to go grab my camera. I want to remember this forever. And he leaves. And then she is like, oh. And she clearly is like, I want to look good for this. I want to look good for this. So she like adjusts her hair. And then she decides that she wants to kind of look seductively while sitting on the edge of the what is it? Like the railing.
The railing of the
boat.
ship.
So
Yep.
she sits on the railing.
That is what happens.
And then I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah,
and she's like wobbles. She's like, falls backwards. Huge splash. Mr. Sheffield comes out and he's like, Fran, darling. And then he starts to and he's like, oh, darling. And then he looks out over and he's like, Miss Fine. And then we hear her kind of go, Mr. Sheffield. And then he dives into the water and there's a freeze frame. And it's like ominous music, like,
yeah. What's going to happen?
Do you think there's probably like a captain of this yacht who it would just probably, it would make more sense than jumping into the dark.
To be like, help. Yeah. You'd have to scream so they can stop the boat. And I mean,
it's very dangerous.
I mean, I don't know, man. Look, I'm going to give the writers the benefit of the doubt here and say they had a beautiful ending to their series. And then some studio executive was like, yeah, you got to do one more season though. And then they were like, okay, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I think I would definitely, again, bet money that the writers were probably so frustrated with the studio. And we know that. We know that they did not want Fran and Mr. Sheffield to get married this early. Even to get together this early. And
right, they wanted that to be the end.
Yes. And so they had to figure out ways to keep it interesting, keep it creative. And I will say, I do know just from a little bit of what I saw, like the premiere of season 6 is definitely them on a deserted island.
Of course it is. Of course. Does she have amnesia? Because that was my guess. It was does she forget they got married? And
here's the only thing I'll say that I'm so bummed about, and it just sucks when like studio execs, get in the way of creative. I just wanted them to have a perfect night. Like I just wanted it for the two of them. And so I was genuinely disappointed from just like a character thing that they had to kind of go in like the goofy, like, direction, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I was bummed out. I was like, I felt the same way as you. I was just like, this is silly. They didn't have to, they could have just, I don't know. They could have started next season with this scene. And I think I would have been more okay. Like if this show ended, if this episode just ended with them going off on the honeymoon, and then the next season opened with this scene, and then we got the opening credits, and then we come back and they're washed up on the island, I think that would have made me happier.
Or what if?
Yes.
I hate being a backseat driver. Like, I know if I was the writers of these episodes and I heard us being like, what if this
listen, that's why they don't come on here and talk to us. They all hate us.
No, but that's not true, listeners. They just don't know about us. But so
it's even worse than being hated.
Yes. But no, I'm sure it's very frustrating because I'm sure they were under so many, random constraints. But what could have been the end of this season finale is just you get us to the point where Fran is supposed to appear and she doesn't. And then that's the cliffhanger, is like, oh my gosh, has she fled? Is she backing out? And then we could have started next season on a wedding where it actually all worked out.
Yeah. I mean, any of those things, but yeah, her falling off a boat and him like freeze framing, diving into the water, I was not expecting and was not as, I was feeling so satisfied, and then I was left feeling not satisfied. I was like, oh, okay, I guess.
So much leading up to this. I loved so much. I loved 95% of this episode, like
Agreed.
10 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
11 out of 10.
On that note, we should get into
Segmentes.
And now, segments. Is this the last time we ever hear this?
Segments.
I don't know. I think we should move on to segments.
To say we can move on to our segments.
And now, segments.
Segments with Shawn and Toria. You smug. You're so smug and self-satisfied sometimes. All I think when I hear you do that is that you're smug and you're self-satisfied.
Wow. Jeez.
Wow. I was going to say 5 years in, 2.5 years in, and this is where we are, folks.
It feels like 5 years, though.
All right. Favorite lines and moments.
Okay.
You first.
Okay. Okay. I have mostly moments. This wasn't so much lines for me this episode, although the CC Yetta, like that exchange is probably the best line in the whole thing. I also really like the Stanley sit down. We paid for your damn vegetarian dinner. Now eat it. But then Freezy moments, or favorite moments, Freezy moments. I liked Cece showing up at the wedding and like immediately devolving. Like when she put the veil on her head, I laughed so hard. Like,
and well, just to say, Lauren Lane's physical comedy, like,
yes,
it was impeccable because on paper that's not necessarily the most funny thing you've ever read, but she literally almost like glides over to the aisle, grabs the bow, glides back, sidesteps over to him, and then this sort of like it's like sneaking up, like do.
Yes, it's so funny. She's great, underappreciated actress of our times, I think. So yeah, I mean that was mostly. Oh, and God, it feels like a whole different episode. But the Sylvia letter to Fran and the little girl Fran saying goodnight, Ma. I really, 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 that was one of my maybe my favorite moments in the whole series. I thought that was that and the Sarah scene in the last episode. I thought are like two of my favorite moments in the entire whole thing.
I loved that moment where we see her as a little girl. I loved when Mr. Sheffield is saying all the things he loves about Fran. And then in terms of favorite lines, you said a few of mine, like the screaming about the damn vegetarian dinner, Sylvia and Cece. And then the only other thing that we haven't talked about is at the very beginning of the episode, Fran and Mr. Sheffield are like, oh, maybe we should just do it now. Like, we're so hot for each other, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, well, you can't see me 24 hours before the wedding and we only have 2 minutes. I got to get out of here. And then he's like, I think I can do it in 2 minutes. And Sylvia comes in and she's like, come on. And she's like, there's only one man who could satisfy. Wait, I have to start over. There's only one man who can satisfy a woman in 2 minutes. Colonel Sanders. Sorry. I just loved it. And also that it was kind of weird that she pops in and knows exactly what's going on.
She's so funny.
I know.
She really is. She's really so funny, that lady.
I know.
Okay.
Also, it's so funny. I just said the line and Kyle just came in the office for a second and even he was laughing.
It's good, man.
It's a good line.
It's a good line. Hey, it's a good line.
And suddenly we're here with the Godfather.
No, Toya. It's a good line.
Remember we already established in a previous season I can't do the Godfather.
Yeah.
Remember I'm like,
that's not what it is. Why do you do that? It sounds like you're choking.
Right? All right. Now, Yiddish. I don't think there was any Yiddish specifically, but I wrote, but there was a lot of very Jewy stuff.
Yeah, it was all, listen, they didn't have to do Yiddish because it was hella Jewed up.
Yes, we had a rabbi. We had singing a blessing. We had the Hora. We had Hava Nagila. And also the Hora might sound very strange. I realize if you've never heard of it because it does have the word whore in the pronunciation. But it's like Hora. It is celebratory dance. And then Hava Nagila is a song that people sing often during all of that. There's two different Hava Nagila.
Yep.
So then that's Jew corner for everybody. And nanny trivia.
Yeah.
Okay. So I already blew it. I already said this, but I will call some credit where credit's due in terms of the I Love Lucy dream sequence, which is so cute, which we talked about. I was alerted to that from listener La Petite Sparks, who often, sends really, really interesting tidbits.
Yes, almost always.
Yes. So I will just say that the trivia this week was that there is an I Love Lucy dream sequence that no longer airs when the nanny airs in syndication, but you can find it on YouTube. And it is, I just really think everyone should go watch it. It's so cute. And then the Fran or the Cece or the whoever, season 5, And I guess I guess it can be this episode or it can be this season.
Man, that's like too much possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
I
feel
mean,
like you're the Fran.
I guess I'm the Fran, I think. Yeah, I was just going to say, I think I'm the Fran in this. Like, I think
You're
I'm
a
the Fran.
classless,
I'm a classless piece of garbage.
And you married.
And I married a perfect human being. And I
Mhm.
was terrified that the people in her life, including herself, would never fully accept me because I'm a garbage person inside. And I almost ran away, but then it turned out that that they do in fact love me, and then I fell off a boat.
I was going to say yes, because you fell off a boat and were missing for several weeks. You and Liz were missing for several weeks after your wedding. We were all so worried.
It was fun. We made a game out of it. It was fine.
I feel like, maybe it's just, I've been empathizing and loving Cece so much recently. In that I just don't know why. I mean, I'm also like, I live with my partner. I've been with him quite a while, but I don't know. There's something about that Cece energy, that
the
big,
desperation, the sad desperation,
that big Babcock energy that I just, I get her sort of, she's just sort of like her own worst enemy sometimes, gets in her own way, is a big softie, but sometimes just like screws it up because of her own defense mechanisms. I sort of get it.
Toria, is that our first show t-shirt?
Big Babcock energy.
Big Babcock energy.
Oh
Can that be our first show shirt?
Yes. Let's just design it.
Yeah.
Season 5.
Yes, we will design it. All right, listeners, I'm making it official. I will design a big Babcock energy t-shirt and I'll put it up on like Threadless or something, and we're gonna need to choose the image of Cece that we use. And the only thing is, I don't think you're legally allowed to do it, but it's okay. Whatever. We're just people do it all the time. Like what? I'll put it on Etsy or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. We'll get it all figured out, people. Or if you're a listener who is a great artist and you want to do an artist's rendition of Cece, then we can use that on the shirt, and we'll give you part of the profit or something. I don't know. We'll figure it out.
I'm sure this will blow up on gay Twitter very hard.
I'm telling you, man. I think it would be great if we could get this. I'm gonna design the shirt. I think it's a really funny idea.
I think it's so fun.
Listeners, send in your favorite big Babcock energy images, and maybe we'll do it that way if you guys
if you guys want one, maybe like we'll print a couple for ourselves, we'll share it on social media, and if you guys want one, we'll get them printed and we can send them to you.
Yeah, we would do that. I mean, I think I could just put it up on like Threadless or something, and then we can all just order it for ourselves.
Hey, why don't you shut up with your ideas?
All right. Well, listen, on that note, if you're wondering how to interact with us after we just gave you all these action points, you should reach out to us on social media, Instagram and the other place at Oh Mr. Chef Pod. We are also on Gmail at Oh Mr. Sheffield Podcast at gmail.com. You can reach out to us there. You can also send a carrier pigeon to our house. My address is 4110 Lemon Tree Lane, Carlsbad, California, 90078. Okay. And then last but not least, have a good week, everyone.
Have a good week. And thank you so much for sticking with us. So for 5 whole seasons, that is insane. It is insane to me that we have people who listen every single week. And it's been week after week for over 100 episodes. So we do it because we love interacting with you. We love being here with you. And so, thank you. And good night.
Yeah, truly, it's crazy that we've gotten through 5 seasons of this and that we continue, our audience continues to grow. Like, people are interested. Mm-hmm. It's pretty crazy. So thank you for listening. Thank you for interacting with us. Thank you. And unlike some other podcasts, you don't have to, don't stress too much because there's not going to be a hiatus. We're going to be back next week with season 6, episode 1. So be there or be Square.
Triangle.
Okay. Goodbye.
The Flushing girl from Flushing, the nanny named Fran.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Miss Fine.